Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and this is going to be my top 20 horror movies from the 90s. And this is part of the top 20 for 2020 list that was created by Joe the Horror Man and Jason from Horrific Nightmares. And this was a really good one because the 90s is kind of considered to be a very weak period for horror. But doing this list reminded me that there's actually so many really great movies from the 90s. It was really tough putting this list together, especially my top 10. There's some seriously good horror films. So it's a nice reminder of the great movies that came out in that period. So, starting at number 20 is Return of the Living Dead Part 3. And this is actually my favourite one of the entire franchise. I really like this one. I really like the characters. This zombie woman's really cool. I like the story, and it has some really cool practical gory effects in it. So it's always the one that I've enjoyed the most out of the series. So that's number 20. At number 19 is I Know What You Did Last Summer. So in the late 90s we saw a load of sort of teenage slasher movies, and this one I thought was one of the better ones. I love the story of the teenagers doing something wrong and it coming back to haunt them. And I really love the look of the fisherman in this film, the killer of the movie. He was really cool. So again, it's just a movie that I've always enjoyed. At number 18, we've got The Frighters. This is the first of a few movies on the list that were kind of like horror comedies, and this one I've always had fun watching. I thought Michael J. Fox was really good in this film, and I really like the two ghost companions, these guys on the cover that are in the movie with him. They always made me laugh. So it's one that I have fond memories of discovering in the 90s, like a lot of these movies, and it's a film that I've always enjoyed since. Right, number 17. Talk about this movie a lot, and that's the Blair Witch Project. I know people either love this movie or hate it. It's a film that I've always appreciated. I think it's a really effective film for what it is, and I couldn't leave it off the list because I do think it's left its mark on the horror genre. It was a massive deal at the time, and you know, whether you love it or hate it, I think you can't help but recognise that it did make an impact, and I respect the movie for that. And for what it did. And I personally still find it really scary to this day. So that is number 17. Number 16 is Interview with the Vampire. I was talking about this one recently because I watched this when I was a lot younger and really didn't enjoy it. I thought it was way too lavish, way too long and over the top. So only just recently bought it and watched it again. And on revisiting it, I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated it this time for the things that I kind of didn't like before. I love the lavishness of it. I love how the story transcends across different centuries and time periods and things like that. And they're just wonderful performances from everyone involved. I don't have it any higher on the list because it's not a film that I can watch over and over again. But I do think it's a wonderfully made film. And a real kind of cut above a lot of like the sort of movies that were coming out at the time, in terms of its production and the look of it and things like that. So glad that I watched that one again. So that was 16. At number 15 is Halloween H2O. Always thought this was a good film. I have fond memories of this one coming out. I remember this movie coming out and it was like quite a big deal in the 90s, and it was sort of 20 years after the original. And that was always cool because horror films don't always get that much coverage when they come out. So it was great to have memories of seeing this around. It was all over the place at the time. I mean, it was a film that I enjoyed. I thought it was cool and still think it's cool now. So that was number 15. At 14 is Wishmaster, which is a film that I only actually watched for the first time last year and really enjoyed it. What I like about Wishmaster is, even though it came out in the late 90s, which is when they were like using CGI for everything, no matter how terrible it looked. It's got lots of really cool practical gore effects in it, which I just loved. So really enjoyed watching Wishmaster. Thought it was a great film, and that's why it's number 14 on my list. Number 13 is Silence of the Lambs. Now this is a film that might not have made the list, but I actually revisited this not too long ago and was reminded just how great of a film it was. These kind of movies, like these psychological horror movies, they aren't really my go-to type film. If you know me and watch the channel, you know that I really love my sort of trashy rubber monster films. So sort of people and psychological stuff isn't my go-to thing. But I do enjoy them, and I rewatched this and I was reminded just how great a film this is, and how gripping the story is, and how fantastic Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are in the film. And it always makes me laugh that this was a horror film until it kind of found favour at the Oscars and the Academy Awards, and it sort of suddenly became a psychological thriller. But for me, it's totally a horror film. It's got some great kills in it, and it's very scary and very creepy. Really effective film. So that is my number 13. At number 12, probably going as far away from Silence of the Lambs as you can, movie-wise, and that is Jack Frost. And this is a film that I've always enjoyed. It always makes me smile. I have vivid memories of seeing this in the video shop and seeing that killer snowman glaring back at me, thinking I've got to check this film out. And I watched it and had so much fun, and still have fun watching it now. I love it. I love the 90s feel to it. And, a killer snowman, you can't go wrong with that kind of thing. So, had to have that one on the list. So, at number 11 is From Dusk Till Dawn. Been seeing a lot of people showing this one. A movie that I really enjoy. I wish I could forget it and go back and watch it again, just to see the story unfold and to see that sudden shift from kind of like road movie / crime thriller to just straight up vampire horror movie. It's just so cool how they do that, and I love how they make that shift in the story. So that is number 11. So into the top 10, and at number 10 we have Exorcist III. The theatrical cut, not the director's cut. I didn't enjoy that at all. But the theatrical cut of this movie is fantastic. Really great story about the George C. Scott trying to track down a serial killer. And it's all linked to Father Karras from The Exorcist 1. Really great movie. Very creepy film. Great performances from George C. Scott and Brad Dourif and Jason Miller from the original Exorcist. Really, really liked this film. It was a first time watch for me when I got it after Arrow released it, and it's come straight into my top 10 best films of the 90s. I thought it was that good. At number 9 is Tremors, and like the Frighters, I just thought this was a really fun film. Always one that I enjoy. I love creature features, so this one's right up my street. Apparently Kevin Bacon was very reluctant to do this movie. He wasn't too sure he wanted his career to go in this direction, but from what I hear now, he's very much a fan of this film, which is great, because it is such a fun film and an enjoyable film to watch. I also really love Tremors 2. I think that was the first movie I saw from this series, so I have great memories of that one, but the first one, definitely a really fun film. So that is number 9. And at number 8 is Demon Knight, a Tales from the Crypt movie. Again, such a fun film to watch. Billy Zane in this is has such a great character. I think this is one of the best performances that he's given. I love the effects in it. I love the look of the demons, and everything about this film is really good. I love the ending as well on the bus. I think that's a really cool ending. So yeah, an awesome film. Always love Demon Knight. So that was number 8. Number 7 is the remake of Return of the Living Dead. One of the best remakes in my opinion. I think I enjoy this one probably more than the original. I think Hobbs Horror said the same thing, and I have to agree. I just think this is a better film. I think it's directed better. It has better makeup effects. It's scarier than the original. The original is a classic. I absolutely love it. I'm not bashing the original. I just think this is an example of modernising a film and doing it absolutely right. It's a really great film, and Tony Todd in this was fantastic. So that was number 7. At number 6 is Idle Hands. I absolutely love this film. One of the funniest films I've seen as well. This is kind of like the American Pie equivalent of horror. So just teenagers hanging out and doing stupid stuff, but it's got a possessed demonic hand in it, and is just hilarious in places. Always love this film. It's often one that I just go back and watch because it's so easy to watch and so funny and entertaining. So highly recommend, if you want to watch a great horror comedy, check out Idle Hands. So that is number 6. And into the top 5. This top 5 was really difficult to do. I really had to think about the order of these movies. But at number 5, we have The Faculty. And I spoke about this before. I think this is a really underrated movie. I'm not sure if it's kind of hidden in like this sort of teenage 90s type horror film, but it's actually a really, really good movie. Really well made. I love the characters in it. I love the idea of the teachers being aliens. It's got some pretty decent 90s CGI effects in it for the time. And like I say, it is just a great and really overlooked film. It's yeah, very, very underrated. So that is number 5, The Faculty. At number 4 is Sleepy Hollow. And what I love about this movie is like the sort of the rich gothic atmosphere of the film. A lot of movies like don't capture this kind of atmosphere, not since like the 1970s, and somehow this movie seems to capture that sort of really gothic hammer horror style feel, which I really, really love. Again, I love the characters in this movie. I love the performances from Johnny Depp. The Headless Horseman is great. And it has some really kind of genuinely dark and creepy moments, which I really enjoy. So, again, slightly underrated, I think. You don't hear Sleepy Hollow talked about all that much. But for me, that's my number 4 on the list. Okay, top 3. And at number 3 is The Craft. I love this movie. It's one that I had to give it a chance when I first watched it, because it's about these 4 high school girls that are struggling to settle into their school, which kind of is, at that stage, is enough to turn me off from a film. But actually, when you watch it and you see that it develops into them discovering witchcraft and all these dark powers, it's absolutely fantastic. I love how the story unfolds and how they get into these, casting these dark spells, and how it changes their characters and things like that. Really, really awesome film. And it's one that really captures that late 90s vibe as well, which I really enjoy, because that was the time when I was growing up. So it's a film that I really, really enjoy it. Love the look, love the feel of it, love the performances from everyone in the film. And like I say, that story of them going from social outcasts to discovering this sort of dark power is really cool. So that's number 3. Number 2 is Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead. I have fond memories of my dad getting this on VHS and watching it, and not seeing anything like it in terms of blood and gore. It was just on another level. But I love the fact that even though it was remarkably violent and gory, it was funny at the same time. I thought that was great, and it works brilliant as like a horror comedy. Great effects in it. Like I say, hyper gory. I'm sure everyone's seen this and you know what it is and what it's like. And yeah, I wish Peter Jackson would do another movie like this. That would be so cool. So that is my number 2. And at number 1 is Scream. I do love Scream, and I have to recognise it as the best movie of the 90s. I love how it sort of changed the landscape of horror movies. Now, by the mid-90s, horror movies really weren't doing very much. It kind of dried up in terms of creativity, and this sort of kick-started a new slasher craze for the late 90s, similar to what happened in the early 80s. And I think it's really cool how this looks back on itself and has that kind of self-referential look at horror movies. And it's a really fun film, really entertaining. I love the Ghostface killer. I think they're really iconic. So that for me is my number one movie of the 1990s. So please let me know what you think of that list. Was there films on there that you like? Is there films on there that you don't like? Feel free to let me know. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.